Hey there, Jonathan here, coming to you from the lands of the Yagara and Turrbal people, lands never ceded. You're watching innerVIVID, and this is the first video in theme 7, lovingly entitled, More Than Just Us. If none of that makes sense, check out innervivid.au, because we got no previously on recaps here. You just skip it anyway. So over the course of these themes, we've been hanging out in the dystopian wasteland of that thing called maybe spirituality. The idea is that if you've been wondering about that stuff, these videos have been giving you questions to ponder, as if pondering is a thing people do. And sure, you don't have to watch all these videos. You can just jump in anywhere, right? Anyway, we've wondered about beginnings and purposes for life, and how people decide how to live, and endings, and even more. It's been big. But now we get to the biggest thing of them all, maybe. Any chat about this spirituality stuff is going to eventually get to wondering about whether there's something, someone in the universe that's bigger than you or me. The language here is tricky because it's also loaded, right? So we decided to go with referring to this, whatever the flip we're talking about, as higher power. That's not a perfect term either, as you'll see. And look, a thing or two right from the outset. These vids are aimed at helping you wonder where you stand on the higher power issue. Is there one? If there is, what is that HP like, etc., etc. But remember, everyone's spirituality can be different. You don't have to agree with anyone here. On the higher power idea, whether you are pro or anti or even indifferent, it's not a deal breaker. There's lots of spiritual people who do believe in the higher power idea. And there's a lot who don't. It's up to you. We've been saying that a lot at the end of these videos, but it's especially important here because the higher power idea can be contentious, controversial, confusing. That's partly why we've waited until theme 7 to even go here. But no matter where you end up with HP issues, the bottom line is it's worth having a good old ponder on this one. So let's dive in with our brilliant first question.
If you believe in a higher power, what is that being like?
So I wonder which words we might reach for instead of a higher power. To me, a higher power has connotations of accountability, of something external to us, of someone who we are accountable to, just in the same way that we are accountable to our bosses at work. There's an element of transaction that might mean that if I do something wrong, I am accountable to that higher of power. So I wonder about the words that I might reach for instead. Some writers who are writing about a higher power think that it might be great to explore the concept as not actually a kind of thing or a kind of person. We might be talking about something that is more indwelling or more loving, possibly.
To be honest, I don't frame my own belief as in believing in a higher power. I think I'm a person of faith, but it's not in terms of, I think in the morning, oh, well, I've got an advantage over that person next door because I believe in a higher power. That's not how it works for me. And so that question made me think about what is it I actually believe in? And for me, I believe in a sense, that there is purpose and meaning in this life around me more than I can actually just generate or discern on my own. There's something more. Now that more, I'm not actually sure how to totally describe. The best word I come up with is love. There's just more love in the universe than I can actually work out on my own. So it doesn't really work with the phrase higher power. So I might actually kind of be a bit cautious with that word. In terms of that word itself, it sounds a little bit kind of hippie to say, oh, hey man, I believe in love, but God is love. That's one of the great kind of things that comes out through the Bible. So I kind of end up just saying, I believe in a God. I believe in a God of love that in a sense holds this whole universe together.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, you know, because we're talking about who this being is. Is it a being, or is it a existence, or I don't, well, you know, there's lots of ways of thinking about it. My husband talks about this common consciousness that might exist. That's his kind of thinking at the moment. And the older I've got, and the more I've lived and the more I've seen, I think I've actually just really come to this idea that actually there is a source, there is a fundamental place from which love comes from, truth comes from, some place, some source that justice comes from. Well, and what is justice if not truth and love together, right? The other part for me is that that is not a dispassionate existence of a thing called love and goodness and trust, although that's a great start. Those things exist, but there's intent with that. And so for me, I guess we would best explain it as being a person, someone who acts and shares and actively loves and actively reaches into relationship and actively is creative and brings things forth and draws things together and works to protect and works to illuminate and reveal truth. And that's a pretty extraordinary thing.
The higher power being that I believe in is of love and is always working towards bringing us closer together. Together with the higher power as one, but also with each other and with creation. So it's always about finding ways to connect with others and to connect with living beings and beings that are other than human, and flowers and grasshoppers and waves and God.
I do believe in a higher power, and I probably don't use that term. I would more comfortably use the word God, but I also know that that doesn't mean a lot without context. So if I think about a higher power, God, something along those lines, for me it is the thing that is bigger than us. I've talked before about the big universe, the little people, and how random life is and how challenging it is. For me, there is absolutely a sense in the midst of all of that that we are held by something bigger than us. And it's something that wraps around us, that loves us, that is interested in us. And I find comfort in that, because for many aspects of life, it would be terrifying to think that I was on my own in this. So just as I reach out to other people, beyond other people, beyond physical reality, I have experienced something else that is capable of holding all of that together in love. And for me, that's probably the closest I can come to a definition of God.
We can't actually describe the shape and the height and the size of God. And I'll tell you the story. There was this priest, and unfortunately his wife passed away. So he did a funeral, and then he had to take his daughter for a holiday, just to grieve and then be themselves. So they took the cruise. They went to the ship, and they were in the middle of the ocean. The captain of the ship recognized that this man is a priest. So on Sunday, the captain came to him and said, "Would you mind to give us the service?" And he said, "Oh, well, okay, I can do that." And then he even took it further. He said, I just want you to preach on the theme of love. And the priest went on, because he's wrestling between, does God actually love him? If God loved him, why did God take his wife, leaving this little young daughter? And when he stood up, he got up and he preached powerfully about love, about God. God loved us. And his little daughter was looking at him and said, is Dad really saying the truth? After he finished, they went outside to the deck just to enjoy the fresh air. And then the daughter said, Dad, you preach that God loved us. Really? Does God really love us? If God loved us, why did God kill? That was the word she used, kill my mom, leaving me like this. And father looked at him and at her and said, daughter, look up there. Can you see the sky? And she said, yes. He said, how far is the sky? She said, it's too far. And Dad said, that is how God loved us. And he looked around and pointed her to that direction and said, can you see the end of the ocean? And she said, no. And Dad said, that is how much God loved us. And said, look into the water. Can you see the end? And the daughter said, no. And said, that is how much God loved us. So we truly, yes, God loved us. But we can't just describe how big is God, because God is much bigger than we can describe.
Okay, look, just to pop back in. Beautiful story, Mamor. I have a tear. It reminds me of that kid's story, Guess How Much I Love You. You know, the one with the rabbits? You can see already the kind of terrain people get into on this issue, love and stuff like that. I feel like I have an idea bubbling up on this stuff. Have you heard the term devil's advocate? Not the awesome film with Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino. I'm talking about that thing where you ask difficult questions about a subject so it's not just all cuddly and gentle, in order to get at some of the underlying possibilities about something. Yeah, I'll get back to you on this.
Well, I'll tell you what my higher power is not. It's not a parent. It's not a school teacher. It's not a police person. It's a friend. It's somebody who is helping me through my journey. Someone who's maybe suggesting a better way forward than the track I'm already on. Someone who loves me, who accepts me for who I am, and who forgives me when I make mistakes.
Well, being of Christian faith, to me that high power is God. Many different words for God throughout the world, but as an English speaker, it's God. What is that higher power like? That higher power is everything to me. God is the very reason the universe exists. Anywhere in the universe, to me, comes from God. I've heard people say to me they can't believe in a God, but I can't believe in a coincidence. I can't believe that we're here because two atoms happen to collide near a sun, which happen to give the right amount of heat, and then other atoms happen to collide and force, and suddenly one day here we have life on Earth. God to me is the ultimate creator. Through God, the world is here. Now, there are some Christians that believe in a type of Christianity where God ordains every move and everything. I don't follow that line of Christianity, but I follow a Christianity that God is who gives me the opportunity to make decisions, to go left or right.
I surely believe in high power of God, because every time I look at myself and think, oh, who make me to be who I am? Some people think, oh, mom and dad, but who make mom and dad? And so if you keep going, starting from yourself, who make me, who make my parent, grandparent, and so on, you can't find the answer. The truth is that there's something above our capacity that we can't find here, something that we can't imagine, and that is the superpower. And that's why I believe that there's something greater than us, greater than all the seas, the skies, and so that is God. We just come to the conclusion that there is a superpower who make these things, who have created me and other species on this planet Earth.
So I don't believe in any higher power as a being that is comparable to other beings in the world. So for me, like, the concept of God does not denote any sort of separate entity or being or person kind of out there. For me, those concepts, they mark the sort of astonishing reality that there is anything at all. So you could say that God is this, that there's something rather than nothing. So God is not a who, God is not a what, God is a that. That there is me, that there is you, that there is this world that's both terrifying and alluring. And that God is a way of simply kind of marking the sheer happening of that reality.
A higher power. I have to say I've never really believed in a higher power as an object, something separate. I see the universe as relational, and I see that there's something that's holding all of that relationship together. So it's partly physics, I think, because I'm really energized by quantum physics and how topsy-turvy it makes the world and how connected it makes it. So I just have this sense that there is something that connects us to everything. And that it could be called a higher power, it could be called God, it could be called the universe, it could be called life. And I think the name we give it really depends on which sort of formation culture we've been part of.
I am a massive sci-fi fantasy nerd, and I'm fascinated by the way that the creative element of our world sort of tries to help us understand that there's something other than ourselves. We always try and define it as something that looks like something, or we can compare it to something else. But I wonder whether that, again, is part of our human limitation, that I like to think of higher power or God, as I would refer to it, as something that I don't need to fully contain, that I don't need to have an answer to what this higher power or being looks like, feels like, smells like, is to touch and is tangible. But I love the exploration of what others think that higher power is like, and I'm fascinated by another's perspective.
In a particular strand of Jewish mysticism, there's a remarkable image that creation is the self-shattering of God, and that all the different beings of the world are kind of God shattered out into a million pieces. And that kind of gets at the fact that God is not some sort of separate person, but the very event of the world. And also that the world is contradictory, that it's both wonderful and terrible, that it's both a space of joy and a space of brokenness, and that God is bound up in all of that, and that relating to God is relating to all of that.
I often save up some of Peter Klein's stuff to the end, so you'll be left with a blown mind. The self-shattering of God. It's so good. Okay, so we've heard from a lot of people about their ideas about what some kind of higher power might be like. Maybe love or connection, maybe a being, maybe not. That all sounds nice. But okay, a difficult question or thing to think about has been trampling over my brain during these people speaking. Are these ideas about higher powers or gods, is this stuff actually true? Or just what we want to be true? You know what I mean? I just can't get that idea out of my head. I used to ask lots of people about whether they believed in a higher power. You'd get a big old group of people who'd say yes, and a big old group of people who'd say no. But if you ask the same group a slightly different question, do you hope there is a God? The yes vote is huge. It seems lots of people who don't think there is a God still hope or kind of wish there is one. So what am I saying? Is this all just wishful thinking? Or is it wishful thinking that actually makes the world a kind of place anyway? I don't know. The jury's out. So what do you think of what people have shared? And sure, yeah, what do you hope for?